This is WOTW Radio in Cayuga, New Mexico, and this is the news for the hour.
What would you like to tell us about yourself?
I don't know.
Well, aren't you like some big science girl? Tell me about science.
Everett, it's Faye. The sound came through the board and interrupted your radio show.
What sound?
Hi, this is Candy Minks in Chicago for the podcast, Agency Podcast.
And this is Eugene in Toronto for the very same Agency Podcast.
I know, what's wrong with me? I already started out bad.
We're in different cities this time, which is odd. And we've just been futzing around with our settings because, you know, we've been fortunate enough in the past few weeks to be able to podcast from the same place. So we haven't had to use the wonders of the interwebs or anything like that. And
I know.
We've, because you and Stagg have been living at our place.
I know.
It's just sit in front of a microphone.
I know. And now it's so quiet to be home. As much as I enjoy all my hobbies, and I do, it's pretty quiet to miss the family and you guys and, you know.
It's true. You know, I was just getting used to living with people, right? Besides Sheila, of course.
Yeah. Were you just getting used to trying to find your pots and pans?
We pretty much got it straightened out now.
Oh, good. I was saying to you in a message on Facebook that because you were trying to find your colander, that for me, that's pretty much. I mean, we don't even have that many kitchen things. Not like a lot of. And I'm a kitchen freak. Like I love all my tools and everything. But we kind of. I've tried to pare down a lot of the things that we own. It doesn't always work, but I've tried. And I still end up going, where the hell is this pan? Or where the hell is this teaspoon or something, you know?
You know, there's a phenomenon that I really don't understand in the kitchen. Let's say you take an hour and you organize all your plastic Tupperware type containers.
Geez,
so you know where all the lids are for all the containers, and within 2 days you cannot find a lid for any container you want.
Nope, you can't.
How is this?
I don't know. Now, you know, I got some glass containers to kind of battle that. They're really nice tempered glass and a plastic lid. You can put them in the freezer, you can keep them, and I think they're a little bit more environmentally sound because they last longer. And I haven't had a problem finding those lids. That's been very productive. But I know some Tupperware or plastic container companies are trying to do color-coded lids. They try everything they can do, but you know, it's like the socks. They have to be sacrificed to the god Longro.
I'm telling you, it's true.
The lids have to be sacrificed to the god of preservation or something. I don't know. And it's the worst feeling. And, you know, you'd like to not be, Jill, a friend of ours and listener, she actually made beeswax preservative paper, which is really great for cheese. You take beeswax and you soak it in a fabric, I think.
Right.
Yeah, and then you can wrap up products. You can wrap up food. I think you could wrap up meat. If you can wrap up cheese, I don't know why you couldn't wrap up meat.
I don't know. I haven't tried meat, but certainly cheese it works great with.
Yeah, and I just love it. I had bought some from Trader Joe's, and you know, it feels good. It feels like you're doing something. It's so sensual and fun in the kitchen to have that wax paint, the beeswax wrapped around food. I love it.
What is this Trader Joe's?
Oh my God, it's the greatest store on the planet for groceries.
Is it really? Do they have them like in different cities?
Yeah, but not every city.
Okay.
It's a pretty big deal. When we do a road trip, remember road trips. When we do a road trip, I usually do try and Google where's the Trader Joe's to go get supplies. They're very competitively priced, and they have all kinds of food that. Now, when I first went into Trader Joe's, I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't really like it. I thought it was too single serve. And I thought things were too packaged for one person, which was an incredibly convenient thing for people who live in the city and single. I get it. And then we went to DC, and we were with my brother-in-law, and he was going into Trader Joe's, and I was like kind of eye rolling, like, oh, I'm not crazy about the store. And for some reason, I kind of got it. All of a sudden I went, oh, this is really great. Like, they have organic mustard and competitive prices, great prices. It's got the greatest peanut butter on the planet. They're really yummy and very good prices. Table cream, dairy, butter. Yeah, it's just a very good store. And they aren't everywhere, but they're expanding. And they, Whole Foods has some great meat and fish, and they have a lot of bulk spices. And there's a lot of things at Whole Foods I love, but it's pretty expensive. It's less expensive than it is in Canada, but it can still be expensive in the States. And they try to be competitive too. What I do when I go shopping is I have a list. I usually have 6 pieces of paper with the different stores that I go to and the different products I buy at each store. And I'll just go popping around to them, with a very specific list of what's a better price at one place.
That's a wonderful pre-pandemic thing to do.
I know, isn't it? True. Yeah, it's true. That is true, and I don't know why I'm laughing so hard, because it's such a mess, the pandemic right now in the United States. I understand Canada is doing a marvelous job of puncturing people, but they're a month behind already in the goals in the United States. So
we're behind here too, but it has more to do, I think, with not enough vaccine here yet than anything else.
Right, and I think that might be. I'm sure that's going to be a problem everywhere, and I suspect it might even be a problem here on some level, that maybe they weren't really sure how to get this going. I know it's still healthcare workers. Do you know anybody who's had punctured?
Yes.
Oh, you do? So do I. I probably know about 4 or 5 people.
I just know one person who's a frontline healthcare worker who's involved with testing for COVID.
Okay, good. Well, I don't know any of. I don't know that. I know a few people who have health issues, and they're lined up this week in the United States. So I thought that was a very good sign. And she was like, "I feel guilty." I said, "No, the sooner you get a vaccine, the sooner I get one."
I also know someone who's a X-ray and MRI tech who is apparently not considered a frontline healthcare worker, and so she's not yet had an opportunity to get the vaccine.
Right.
Even though if somebody comes in with a nasty cough and they need an X-ray, well, she's going to be doing it.
Right,
I would
but
say
she's not in the same room as them. If my basic understanding of X-rays is, she's pretty far away. I mean, it's not like ultrasound where they're right on top of you. I would say an ultrasound worker might be, but I don't know. And also, maybe they're not X-raying people with COVID. Would they be?
I don't know.
I don't know. I have no idea. I'm talking out my ass, so I really don't know.
I don't know. I just hope they get on with it. That's the big thing.
Me too. Yeah, and then on top of everything else, of course, there appears to be some actual physical civil war happening in the United States, so that's not good.
Oh, there is that. Yeah, it's crazy, man.
A great feeling to come back to. It's like we just settled in, and cool, and then we're like, what the fuck?
There's something very, very wrong when the president can organize a coup against his own government, and nobody's done anything. Nobody has taken any concrete action to get this guy out of office.
Yeah, I have my theory is that I think generally people do not believe, you watch a serial killer movie, right? Well, you don't think you're ever going to meet a serial killer. And of course, you're going to do everything you can to stay away from don't get in anyone's car. We know all the standard things, right? Stranger danger, don't walk down alleys. But I don't think you're ever going to think that you're going to work with somebody who gets charged you're going to think you're going to notice it. it'll be obvious or something. But the thing is, I remember in Michael Moore's movie Bowling for Columbine, he filmed people, shadowing, doing serial killer actions like chopping people up and taking bags of bodies out to the garbage. It was all fake, and nobody called the police. Nobody cared. Nobody
Crazy, huh?
looked. And I think that it's because you can't believe it's going to happen anywhere near you. And I think that when you have, having had a bad boss, it was a very difficult situation in the community. At first, I never said anything. But other people, I remember it was after a couple of years, somebody said something. I went, oh, it's not just me. It's not personal. There's something going on here. And I didn't do the gasp when they told me, but it was a quiet gasp, thinking like, oh, something might be up here. And then finding out that more and more people had terrible problems with this person. And turned out there was nothing you could do about it. You could complain to HR, but HR, if it's a manager, they protect the managers. They protect the thing. And it's insidiously, it's subtle, the kind of microaggression that people might do. People go, well, that nobody got hurt, I can ignore it this time. I guess they thought they could go past physical assaulting women by grabbing their genitals. Okay, we'll let that go. Maybe he was just joking. Okay, he called Mexican Americans rapists and thieves. Okay, maybe he was just joking. I mean, I don't know what society we live in that you would let that keep going. But we live in that here in the United States anyway.
Yeah, it's craziness.
And so now it's like all these people are around him. And, Bill Belichick from the Patriots says he won't take his Medal of Honor this week from Trump. Good. Well, that's great. But what made you notice it now? Like, why now?
Apparently, I think what's happening now is that things are coming to a head, and there's a growing rush now for people to disassociate themselves from Trump, lest they be seen to be on the wrong side of history.
Yes. Well, well said. That is
true.
So
people are bailing as fast as they can,
yeah,
and hope that nobody noticed them there.
Right. Well, they did. And I guess in politics, there's a 6-month memory, so they'll probably get away with it, with not being associated, because that's how could Hillary Clinton run for president? Everyone completely forgot that there was a trail of dead bodies behind the Clintons when they got into the White House, and they completely forgot that she slut-shamed Monica Lewinsky. So, these things people they think this is part of normal, and it's not that bad. And my theory is that they just think it's not that bad, and it couldn't possibly be a narcissist in the White House, because they just think, oh, that's something that like Ted Bundy or someone else, like, I don't know, a conceited movie star or something, they don't think it could actually be right next to them. That's what I think.
Hey, speaking of speaking of getting away with crimes and not following up on crimes and that kind of thing, have you continued to follow Your Honor?
No, I don't have Showtime. So I was not able to follow it. How's it going?
Well, good and bad, I would say.
Okay. Because I got into 4 episodes, I think.
Yes, and we've watched, I guess, another 2.
Okay.
And the 5th one, I think, was a tremendously good episode. Very exciting.
Ooh.
There's some. Yeah, it's good, but there's some writing issues. Some of the things are fairly hard to believe.
Yeah.
For instance, the kid who did the hit and run has met up with the sister of the guy he killed.
Okay. I think I saw that. I think that happened.
And they're now like an item.
Yeah.
And they've got this growing relationship. And I'm having trouble believing that this kid, having killed this young woman's brother, is going to want to have a relationship with her when he's really in a lot of danger of spending a lot of time in prison. And if he wants to try to get away with it rather than come clean, maybe he ought to stay away from them.
Well, that I agree with. That doesn't make sense, but it also sounds like kind of, Romeo and Juliet trying to do this odd couple and add tension. And the thing is, to do those cliffhangers, and maybe that's not the best writing of a tension like, Ozark. But then look at Ozark, the things we buy into in Ozark. It couldn't possibly be that way. But
Ozark really is just about going from plot twist to plot twist.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it just got ridiculous.
Yeah, I think Your Honor is sort of trying to do that too. I don't know. But within a limited... The
gangster, the white gangster, the father of the guy who got killed, has believes that the judge killed his son.
Okay, so what? That's crazy.
Yeah. And so he now wants to kill the judge. There's also somebody who's been blackmailing the judge. And as well, we find out that the actual leader of the black gang is a woman.
Okay. Not the first guy we met. Okay.
No, it's actually a woman. She's just kind of runs the whole crew.
Right.
Well, it looks like there's going to be a war between her gang and the white gang.
Oh, geez.
The white gangsters.
Right.
So anyway, that's where we're at. I'm having trouble with some of the writing, but I do like the character of the sister. I think she's a strong character.
Yeah.
And it continues to be suspenseful and a lot of fun.
Good. Very good.
At the same time, we've been watching another show, which I guess is also on Showtime, which is City on a Hill.
I know. I couldn't get that either.
And the really funny thing that's going on is, in my mind, pieces of the one are infiltrating pieces of the other. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I do. It's really hard to sort out.
Yes, it's like we've got these multiple shows going on, and they're bleeding together.
Well, especially if they have crime drama together, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
City on a Hill is a crime drama starring Kevin Bacon, who gives a fabulous performance, and Aldous Hodge, Amanda Clayton, Kathy Moriarty, Kevin Dunn, and Jill Hennessy.
I love Jill Hennessy and I love Kathy Moriarty.
And it's quite an interesting show. It's set in Boston, and it's very loosely based around something that happened in Boston. I think it's called the Boston Miracle and has some other names, but it has to do with law enforcement reducing the amount of homicides and youth homicides by doing things like going after the guns.
Right.
So I guess there was a strategy to reduce crime in Boston that had some success, and this is kind of loosely based on it. And so there's a prosecutor who is a black prosecutor who had been on a commission in which he said that white criminal cops should go to jail. And so the cops don't like him.
Okay. Then
Kevin Bacon plays a corrupt FBI agent. And he is just a monster. And he does such a great job. At times, he actually looks kind of like the Frankenstein monster. Reminds me a little bit of Fred Gwynn.
Okay.
It has to do with his hair and his mustache. And he's very, very corrupt. And we follow stuff going on in his family, as well as a family that robs Brinks trucks together and has done some murders. And there's an unlikely alliance between the prosecutor, Ward, and Frankie, the corrupt FBI agent.
Right.
So it's sort of set in mid-90s Boston. And it's pretty darn good.
Good. Well, I will check it out in the future.
There are characters in it, though. It's bothered both Sheila and I. Characters in it that remind us very much of characters in other shows. Yeah, that's bound to happen. I mean, it's not good. I mean, it's kind of funny. I guess that's what happens when you watch a lot of stuff. It's and when you read a lot of things, you're going to see these crossovers, and you're going to bring that with you. And I think sometimes people are hoping to bring something fresh, plus bring in a new audience to a genre. So you may have younger people who haven't watched those same references as you, and they're going to really, find it
amazing, and then when they watch an old show, they're going to go, "Oh, I wonder if this came from there," or it's poor writing or something. I don't know.
I'm not really sure either.
Yeah,
it seems like it's not coincidence, but maybe it's just everything influences everything.
Right. Well, there was a time after Quentin Tarantino came out with Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction that a few movie makers, they were giving all kinds of money to people to make movies that were like Tarantino.
Sure.
And some of them were good and some of them sucked.
Yeah.
But they were getting people into the theater. Yeah. And it does happen. I mean, when you make a pitch for a story or a movie, it's often that you'll say, this is Kindergarten Cop meets Heat. You know, you'll sell it by using old movies to sell the new plot.
The executive producers of City on a Hill are Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. And Ben Affleck is a co-creator of the show.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I know he's done other movies set in criminal sorts of dramas set in Boston.
So I guess they're from Boston.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I think they are. Isn't that where their first movie, Good Will Hunting, came from? I think was set in Boston. And he's got a couple of great crime movies that are in Boston, where he's tried to get out of the crime. I forgot the name. I think it's called Our Town or The Town.
Something like that. Yes.
Yeah. It's so good.
Yeah. Quite a good movie.
I'm a huge fan of Ben Affleck, actually. And I know that people kind of, because he's been in the tabloids and stuff sometimes, but I just think
he's a good actor. He's a solid actor.
He's a remarkable actor. Have you ever seen The Accountant?
No.
I reckon it's a lot of fun. I recommend it. I think you'll enjoy it immensely.
The Accountant. Okay.
I believe he may be on the spectrum of autism, his character. So it's very interesting. I highly recommend it.
Okay, I'll look for it.
Yeah. So I've been watching a lot of stuff. I was going to quickly mention that I've just got a list here. It's ridiculous. I obviously will not be able to talk about it, but I kind of thought I'd write a list to see what popped up after I watched so much stuff, because we are in quarantine and isolation for a few days after getting back, international travel protocols. So
have you been able to fix your phone?
No, because I want to go into the shop.
Oh, okay, right.
I
realized I was texting you, and I thought, well, geez, should I be texting her? Maybe I should be using Facebook or something.
I know. I got thank you on the Facebook. No, you know what? It went crazy when I got back. It just went nuts, and I turned it on and off again a couple of times, and it's actually functioning a little bit better. I could do a few texts. My sister texted me to say, "Can you get my text?" And I went, "Yeah, I'll phone you." And I just called her. So at one point, I couldn't even dial out on it. I couldn't swipe on it. I couldn't swipe to find the app. So I had to open up the App Store to open up the apps I already had on it.
Adorable.
So that's why on my desktop, I'm using Facebook basically to communicate. Okay. No, I'll get that done on Wednesday, I hope, or so. And I just prefer to go into the store. Yep. Because they switch all your photos over or whatever's on your phone. I don't know why. I'm superstitious. I'd rather be in person.
Sure.
What's funny about talking about things that are derivative or that remind you of other characters, because we talked about a few months ago, I watched, he's called the Mimiverse, and it was a filmmaker in Michigan, Christopher Mim, who has been he's made like 20 movies, and he's made them in his own town with his own family and friends. And they have an avid following, whether it's at church groups or in neighborhood settings, or they've put together a drive-in setting for people before the pandemic.
These are like they're like home movies in a way.
They're not. They're professionally made, but with professional equipment.
Okay, they're not like iPhone movies.
They're not iPhone movies. They are. It's obvious he's quite a beloved moviegoer, and what he missed the old retro alien and monster films. And I think I talked about it probably early in our podcast, probably about a year ago.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and they were all black and white, and they're a lot of fun. Speaking of my phone, they were all. It's ringing through my desktop. They were all made with like homemade sets, homemade monsters, homemade special effects, and they were a lot of fun. And one of our good friends, Derek, he recommended them, and so I kind of went down a rabbit hole with them. And I thought, how amazing that he's got this creative career in his community, and I suppose they probably do. It did seem very church-based, which I thought was also extremely fascinating. He wanted that kind of family entertainment that he missed as a kid, that the whole family could watch a movie together. And so he's got his own, it's called a Mimiverse, right? His own world in response to like maybe the Marvel universe. Anyways, there does seem to be a weird thing. Now, do you remember The Artist, the black and white film that got an Oscar Best Picture, I think?
No.
Okay, well, that was probably about 8 years ago. And I wondered if that had something to do with it. I don't know if he was influenced by it, but it was basically a silent film, or the premise was to be a silent film. And the artist is that he's a filmmaker. But I've kind of gotten down this rabbit hole this week of watching retro-style movies. And I recommended one to you. And there seems to be a number of them. The three I watched particularly was Notzilla, which is a monster movie like Godzilla. And the fellow who made it,
Notzilla, that's
I know
hilarious.
Notzilla. It was actually, it's all dad jokes. It's a lot of fun. The actors are very appealing. There's no irony, no wry commentary about existentialism, except that it's obvious they've watched a lot of these movies. They understand the historical context of some of Godzilla and monster movies, and it's just a really fun movie set in Cincinnati. The filmmaker's from Cincinnati. He seems to have had some behind the scenes production work over the years. I couldn't find a lot about him online. He does have an avid blog and website that he works on. Anyway, a very sweet movie, Notzilla. But blown away, way out of the ballpark, was two other movies I watched. One was called Lake Michigan Monster. It is absolutely fantastic, 10 out of 10. If you get a chance to watch it, I recommend anybody watch it. I think it was available on Prime or Netflix. I think it was Prime. And oh my God, it's black and white. It's a sea captain, and the director is the sea captain. And the premise is his father was killed by a sea monster in Lake Michigan, and he's going to go and avenge that murder. It is not rocket science, but it is so funny. It was absolutely hilarious. Stagg and I were just laughing and laughing. And again, there's not irony. There's no wry trying to be too smart for its britches, but it is smart. There's even a scene with it that has like the Seventh Seal with Ingmar Bergman. It is so inventive that I immediately wanted to make a movie. I immediately wanted to start painting or thinking, because it's absolutely beautiful. And I noticed in the trailer that Guy Madden, he gave them a blurb. And Guy Madden, I think I told you, I did a workshop with him, and he's well known for doing a lot of black and white films. And often his characters are dealing with memory or memory loss, and he distresses his films a lot.
Okay.
And makes it look very retro. He did Winnipeg, My Winnipeg. I forgot the one with Isabella Rossellini where it's like a beer factory. But what's interesting is that beer plays a big part of Lake Michigan Monster.
Okay.
Yeah, beer plays a lot in the Notzilla too, because Notzilla, if you give this monster it's a baby dinosaur monster, and if it drinks alcohol, it gets huge. And in both films, you don't see the monster right away. So it's again like an old film, doing this, building up the suspense. A couple of times I was afraid in it. We did kind of jolt because there was a surprise, twist of events, but not a plot twist, not anything, just something came out of the dark that surprised you. So it does have some emotional delivery. The actors are fantastic. There's only like 6 people in it. Okay. And then the last part of the film is quite a lot of the main director doing it. And this guy, he is so talented because he's carrying the film. And he found crew that could do incredible green screen photography. A lot of it's green screen, but it doesn't mean anything to you. You get so involved in this black and white special effects. It's super, super fun. And everything is retro, like a sonar machine. And it's very old fashioned. And I have to wonder, where is that coming from? What's the deal with this going back to this retro thing? And really not just retro, but making it like, you see Scotch tape. They Scotch tape a sign on. They make a machine and you can see that it's masking tape. They don't care. It's hilarious. And all three of those directors have done the same thing. Where it's
that reminds me of the older Doctor Who's back when, like the Tom Baker years on Doctor Who, where the dialects were, they were just really cheesy monsters, and he had like a robot dog.
Yeah.
And they didn't really spend a whole lot of dough on their special effects, and it didn't matter.
It didn't matter because the fans love it. And also you take this leap once if you can involve yourself with the character or the storyline, and you don't have any pressing, I found it actually a very relaxing experience to watch these movies because I wasn't overthinking, and I wasn't underthinking. There were so many funny things, and these actors were so charming and physical that it just kept you going. And really almost all it is they use Milwaukee. So the Notzilla uses Cincinnati, and you see all these great sites in Cincinnati. Well, I'm kind of familiar with Milwaukee, having spent a bit of time there. It was really cool to see them use the Milwaukee Museum, where they've recreated this. They've got this town that they built in the 60s that you go into. The exhibit is a little town where you can buy candy and everything. Well, the characters go into this and they don't say it's at the museum. They're just pretending it's a real town. It's so funny. It's so ridiculous because at one point they go, the candy store's closed. And then the main star goes, pedophiles. I mean, it just doesn't even make sense, but it was so funny because you're thinking of giving candy to kids. Like, it just was so ridiculous. Like the pedophiles had bought all the candy in the world or something.
Wow.
Yeah, and then there's just sites around historical sites. I really recommend it.
Well, I did watch one retro film that you recommended, which was The Vast of Night, which I really, really enjoyed. Sheila had seen it, and so I watched it one evening when she had to do some late work for her job.
Right.
And she thought it was all right. I guess she wasn't really excited by it.
Right.
But I really enjoyed it.
Eugene, so did I. And I mean, for the first 15 minutes, I was like, I don't know. I mean, it looked beautiful. It was very interesting because it kind of had a couple of captivating camera angles. So I'm like, okay, they know what they're doing here. What's going on? But it's so, it starts out in a high school auditorium before a basketball game.
Oh, and there's this DJ, and the DJ walks into it's basketball practice, and the DJ walks into the gymnasium, and he's smoking a cigarette.
I know, and he
like,
walks
and no one is like,
I know,
stop that.
I know, it's so funny. I noticed the same thing, and I noticed that he just walked into the practice across the gymnasium floor. It was like, well, that's kind of, I guess you really find out who he is from that. He just doesn't. He doesn't care, and the town didn't care. And then he runs into a fellow student, a woman who she's probably about 16.
16, yes. She says she's 16.
She says she's 16. These two actors were magnificent. I think that was part of it, is that the camera loved them.
Yes.
And you don't see their faces right away. They do a lot of repartee, kind of banter, and it's not super enticing conversation.
Well, yes, and you don't really understand their relationship. No, like, is it romantic?
No. Right, because I don't think it is.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't think so. I don't think it was. It seemed like they didn't know each other super well, in fact.
But they were friends. Yeah, that's true. And the camera follows them from their feet for, honestly, like the first, it's got to be quite a long time, 15, 20 minutes. Well, they obsess on things like that. They also did like a 10-minute shot of this young woman, Faye, working the switchboard, because she's a switchboard operator.
It's brilliant. I thought it was amazing because at first I was like, okay, come on already. I thought that came into my ego came in there and was like, hey, come on. But all of a sudden I was captivated by it because she was really good at it. And then I thought about my mother was a switchboard operator. And I thought, I can't believe my mother did that job. And, it looked like it was very complicated, actually. And the way she just kept doing it and switching between calls, it was entirely, absolutely captivating. And the other thing is, at that point, that's when we see their faces, because the camera does not go on their faces for a close-up. So by the time you see him and her, you're hungry for their faces. And that was very exciting to me. I was like, oh my God. It was
very, very well done, for sure.
Very well done. And it goes
the whole film is set, by the way, it's a science fiction space alien movie. Where could it be possibly set?
New
you
Mexico.
Think they might set it in New Mexico? They did. They did set it in New Mexico.
And it's 1950s, right?
In the 50s, and the guy is a DJ at a radio station. Did you catch the name of the radio station?
Yes, I did. WOTW.
Yes, War of the Worlds,
That's
baby.
right. Oh, you got it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. You got it. I didn't get that until I looked at a website.
Oh, yeah, I got that.
Good for you.
That's a really weird call sign. And then it just hit me.
Well, aren't you clever? There's apparently a number of Easter eggs in it, and now it's not the kind of film where there's not a number. It's not the kind of film where it starts out that you think there's going to be a ton of stuff. Well, I didn't know Cayuga High School. Cayuga was a production company for The Twilight Zone.
Of course.
And then there's a family called the Grimaldis. Well, that's the first family that dies in the Body Snatchers. So, I mean, I found that from kind of
they've got all kinds of references.
Yes.
On the one hand, they play it really straight and they try not to comment on the fact that it's a goofball 50s sci-fi action adventure movie. Except that because they're very conscious of it, they can't not make it a comment on that in a way.
No, they can't not. And that's okay too. The filmmaker is Andrew Patterson. It's very difficult to find anything about him. And then the director of Lake Michigan Monster and writer was, he's got a hell of a name. It's 4 names. It's, I got to find it. Oh, Ryland Rickson Cole Tews. And there's not a lot about either of these guys because these are their first films and they don't have a lot of internet presence, which wouldn't surprise me at all. In fact, I read about the actor in The Vast of Night and he doesn't have an Instagram or anything. And it's really funny because I was thinking these 2 movies, what happens is you just I started just letting go of my idea of things. And there was a kind of a relief in the fact that they had these old-fashioned technologies in both movies. And you have to use, that's the biggest difference. When we play a CD, we're not aware of how it's working. When you play a record, yes, there's still the mystery that they record a sound on a record, but you're actually physically putting the needle into the grooves. And you're definitely, when someone's phoning somebody, you're putting these chords together. There was a kind of a magnificent love of the human body and organicness of technology then.
Well, for sure, they were celebrating the phone technology and the radio technology. And of course, how do they know there's an alien? Because they hear a strange frequency. They hear a noise through the switchboard and the radio.
That's right. It's so cool. And the noise in that movie was really brilliant. They're beautiful artists, sound artists doing the sound effects and the soundtrack in that movie. It was really, really gorgeous. And some of the colors, it almost seemed like a black teal. And then they also do a thing where there's like divided into chapters and they use a TV screen, a tiny, tiny TV screen as changing segments of the movie in some way. I didn't get into deep trying to figure out if that was what chapter was what, but there were like 3 different sections of the film. And that the TV, that device was really effective too.
There were also strange moments where you didn't see anything.
Yes.
On the screen.
That was totally crazy.
It was really weird.
It was super weird, but it made my imagination
Plus,
go to work.
They really, I think this film really is about storytelling in a lot of ways.
I think so too.
And so they go about telling this 50s story, but they have 2 characters in it who tell their own story. One is a guy who calls in to the radio station.
Oh, it's amazing.
A couple times and tells his story. And he tells the story in this wonderful, calm voice. And the story is really loaded and complex. There's this racial element in it too, because he gets sent with some others in the army to do a job, and the frequency is there at that time, and he thinks that one of the reasons he and others were sent were because they're black and no one would listen to their story. So there's that. And then there's the other storyteller who's an older woman who calls in and says, I think that caller was correct, and I want you to come to my house and I'll tell you more.
Right.
Yeah, so they go to this woman's house. It's very strange.
I loved it. Yeah, it was so strange. And it was also, that feeling of, which I thought was interesting because the kids then are going back in time as we're going back in time with this movie. And it is about, can we connect with the past? And, Yeah, it has a lot to do with how we live now. Some of the coolest people I know in Chicago, they have flip phones. They don't have smartphones. They don't have Instagram, Facebook, or anything. And they do so much in the city. They go around to every event. I mean, pre-pandemic. They are so involved in the city, and they just have a different way of doing it. And they've made a very big conscious decision to not be on social media. And I thought I thought about them while I was watching this whole part where you end up hanging out with someone just because you ran into them at the school gymnasium. And
so my question to you is, were they abducted?
Well, it's an ambiguous ending, isn't it?
It is kind of ambiguous, yes. You don't know for sure if they're abducted. And when I thought, oh, they've been abducted, then I thought, but what about the older woman? She wanted to go to the ship too.
I know. Well, I guess I feel like that the hint was stronger that they were abducted, and the special effects are incredible. It's super subtle and very beautiful. But I think they were. My feeling about that was that they did not follow. They weren't at the basketball game. Everybody else was at the basketball game in the town. These two were outliers, and they were. She was a science nerd, and there was a weird feeling of like if there were racial things. There was something said about First Nations, and that they were basketball players, and I was very uncomfortable. I wasn't sure where that was going, and yet
I didn't really understand that.
I didn't understand it either. It made me uncomfortable. I was like, I don't know, what's this mean? And then there was a feeling of like, were they punished because they were science geeks, communicators, media? Were they being punished and taken? Or was that actually they were rewarded? Because it may not be a bad thing to be abducted. It might have been an amazing thing to be abducted. It depends on your notion. Is it good to go with aliens or bad to go with aliens?
That's right.
So that was ambiguous too, because those two asked questions. They were inquisitive. They were involved in communications. So both.
And by the way, it bugs me.
Uh-huh.
We listen to late night radio quite a bit in our house.
Yeah.
And in late night radio, there are often those shows that feature people who have seen UFOs, been up in UFOs, have had sex with aliens, all of those sorts of things, have done the deal with the devil, you name it, all the kind of off the wall possible things that people could do. They call into these radio shows. And some of these people, they've not only seen UFOs 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times.
Yeah.
They've been up in them. They've had sex with the aliens. Like I have not even had a chance to see a UFO, much less have alien sex.
I think we just got a title for this episode, Sex with the Aliens. That's one of my favorite bands. I've seen them a few times. Alien Sex Fiends. Alien Sex Fiends. Great band.
I'm not saying I want to have sex with aliens, but I'd at least like to see the damn UFO. Okay.
I know. I feel similar. I went to Area 51 a couple of times,
and some people,
go ahead.
They get to see crop circles too. They get to see everything.
Right.
I feel left out.
I know. Well, crop circles, I think you could see anytime. Just go to England.
Oh yeah, that's an English thing. Okay.
I think it's an English thing. I don't know. I know it's in the States too. I think you could. I think you'd have a chance to, but you can't see them unless you're in an aircraft. I don't think anyway, because they're so big. I don't know. I used to think there couldn't be aliens or they would have come to see me. But now I don't know. Maybe there's no reason for them to let us know if they are there. There's no reason for them to be public about it. I don't know. Yeah. So I enjoyed that 10 out of 10, The Vast of Night. I thought it was
really
absolutely
enjoyed it
beautiful.
Too. I highly recommended it.
Highly recommended it. I can't wait for you to see Lake Michigan Monster. You might want to watch it. It's a great movie to have a couple of beer with. And same as Notzilla. I did not partake, but they definitely were movies you could have friends over and watch together, and it would be a lot of fun. Obviously not right now, after we get punctured. I've been reading. I watched so much stuff. You know what else I watched was I watched a fantastic thing. We watched it. We couldn't stop watching it. 7 episodes. It's called Pretend It's a City, and it's a Martin Scorsese production of interviews and Fran Lebowitz talking. It is so fucking funny. It's amazing, and it's on I think it's on Netflix. And I can't recommend it enough. And it's weird because we also watched a show called, a documentary called If I'm Not in the Obit, If You're Not in the Obit, Eat Breakfast. And that was a series of people who were 90 years old being interviewed. Fran Lebowitz is not 90 years old, but there was a lot about her generation and her way of doing. She doesn't own a cell phone. So it goes back, it kind of ties into this retro thing. And these guys on it, if you're not in the obit, Eat Breakfast was Carl Reiner, Norman Lear, and Mel Brooks. And they're sitting around talking. They've been friends for 55 years or something. They talk about when they met. And then they interview other aged people mostly in Los Angeles. The only qualms I have is it's funny as hell, a lot of dad jokes. But my only qualm is that they're doing the blue zones. And blue zones study where the happiest people in the world are and longevity, right? Are you aware of that?
No.
Blue zones thing? Well, I guess the guy, he's interviewed in this film, and they're just trying to find out what makes people happy. And they study longevity and quality of life in different countries and try to come up with things that would make, what makes these people happy. And he's interviewed, but they really only interviewed people who were upwardly financially mobile. And so, of course, one of the theories with blue zones is that rich people do live longer, not just because of healthcare. It's because they like spending their money. He doesn't say that in the film, but I've read some behind literature about blue zones. And one of the things is simply for the fact you get up and you get to be able to have money.
Okay.
Anyway, it was a lot of fun, but Fran Lebowitz, you must see it because I hope our listeners watch it because she's really one in a million. She lived in New York City in the 60s and 70s. She still lives there. She moved there when she was 19. She worked for Andy Warhol's Interview magazine. She did different writing jobs. She had a couple of books published, but she's had a famous writing block since then. I think she might have written some articles for newspapers, for side articles, but not very many. Martin Scorsese did a film of her public speaking a couple of years ago, and this seems to have come out from it, that he must have figured out that she has so many things to say about culture and society that he just needed to record her more. She has 10,000 books.
Cool.
So she has to have a fairly large apartment, and people who sell her real estate go, why do you have to have a large apartment? You live alone. She goes, I have 10,000 books. I looked at our books, and I think we have 500 books, and we have 200 DVDs. And I'm always trying to pare them down a bit.
We've gone through periods of paring down books for sure.
Yeah. So, and I keep some. I keep some that I use over and over again for research, and then there's some that you just love. But a lot of them I would definitely... I think we're pretty good at 500. I probably could get rid of 100. Anyway, I was just trying, and the Fran Lebowitz show on Netflix is called Pretend It's a City. Hilarious, and it totally goes with the retro vibe. I don't think that anybody would like me saying that, but I mean it in terms of wisdom. She, that she just looks at people who have modern lifestyles. They're walking down the street with cell phones, and it's just a mystery to her, and she hates people, so it's really funny because she just can't stand the human race. So she's hilarious. She's not unlike somebody I know on this podcast.
Who's that?
You.
What?
Well, not that you hate people, but kind of curmudgeonly. I know you like people.
You think I'm a curmudgeon, do you?
No, I don't think you are, but you have funny statements. You have funny statements about people and life, and
me?
And Fran Lebowitz, she really does think, she said that she thinks art is really, you got to see it. She does talk about art being a big bullshit art, bullshit. The art world's a big, they're shysters and rip-off artists and all that stuff,
When you were here,
yes,
Sheila and I wanted you to see a reality show that we've been watching, but it wasn't on during the period that you were here for some reason. And I wanted to talk about it.
Oh, good.
It's called
I love reality TV.
It's called Escape to the Chateau.
Oh my God, what a funny title.
Yes.
I love it.
Okay, and it started with a couple, Dick Strawbridge and his partner, Angel Adore. Adore isn't her real name. It's actually Newman, but it got changed to Adore along the way. And
sometimes you got to do that.
You do. And Dick Strawbridge is a really interesting fellow. He was an army guy, an engineer, a lot of experience working overseas. I think he worked in the oil business as an engineer. And he met this woman, Angel, and they had a couple of kids and they were living together. And he started doing TV work. He did something called Brothers in Arms. He was a presenter, a contestant, then presenter.
Okay.
And then he was on something called It's Not Easy Being Green, and something called Planet Mechanics. And then another show called The Hungry Sailors, where he and his son sail around to different places and eat stuff.
I've never heard of any of them. That's
right.
Amazing.
Neither have I. Okay. So then they have this idea they're going to move to France.
Okay.
And so they contact the television network and they say, we're going to buy a place in France. You should come along and film us looking for a place to live in France.
I know. Why didn't we think of that?
So they did this little show, right?
Okay.
And what happened was they found a chateau, a castle in France that I don't know how old it is. It's like hundreds of years old.
Okay.
And it has a moat.
Damn.
Filled with carp, and it has 9,000 square feet and 45 rooms. And the cost of it was about the same as a condo in England.
Really? Funny.
Yeah.
Are they British?
That no one, they're British.
Oh, that's
no one
why
has lived there for 50 years or something. And so the thing is in shambles.
Yeah.
But it's spectacular.
Yeah.
And so the show is they're going to fix it up and live there with their family.
Okay.
And they have this plan that they're going to open a wedding business. Mm-hmm. So people can come to the chateau and they'll like cater the wedding in the chateau.
Perfect.
In the spectacular grounds. And so they start to fix the place up. And of course, it's really expensive to fix the place up. They're not super rich. But she apparently went on Dragon's Den, which I assume it's the British one.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like Shark Tank.
Sure.
To try to get money. I don't know if she was able to.
Oh, wow.
And they start doing a lot of things themselves. And she's a designer. He's an engineer. So they know how to do stuff. And they start fixing up a few rooms to make it livable. They start bringing in better electricity, better heat to the place. And slowly but surely, they're turning it into someplace livable. And then they bring the in-laws over to live with them and babysit the kids. And one of their first goals is they're going to get married. But they're going to get married at the chateau. And they've got to get the place in enough shape that they can invite people over.
Right.
And this has gone on for, there's several seasons of this show where they do like a yurt in the middle of the moat.
Sure. So they can have somewhere to have a kitchen, I guess?
To have things for guests to do, right?
Okay.
They built a boat so people could go rowing around. They got chickens. They converted something to a chicken coop. And there's like 7 or 8 outbuildings. And they don't even look at some of them for the longest while. But there's all kinds of treasures. And they repurpose the treasures. And Angel comes up with all kinds of wacky design ideas. And Dick has to make them be so.
It sounds delightful, and I'm going to have to. I hope
so charming.
I hope I can find it. Is it on?
It's on
BritBox
PBS.
Oh, PBS.
It's on PBS, and it looks like they've gone back to the beginning now.
Okay.
So I don't know. It might also be on BritBox, something like that.
Yeah.
So Escape to the Chateau. It's totally delightful. Angel has a very unique fashion sense, and as does Dick. Dick is working on growing a mustache as big as his beer belly, which is ample.
Oh, it sounds like a lot of fun. I love that idea. I could totally imagine, I have a fantasy about renovating a building and living in a crazy location and that. But I also just love being in a city. And certainly Pretend It's a City with Fran Lebowitz makes you remember why you like a city so much. Trying to see what else I've got here. You know what? Of course, Parler. Remember when I said I joined that that app? I put it on my phone
Oh, yeah. I hope you got rid of all evidence of that.
Well, I didn't do anything wrong with it. I was monitoring the situation, if you will. Yes, I don't have it on my phone anymore because it's been pretty much, the daughter of Breitbart is the owner of that. She created it. She inherited. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? She inherited from her dad. She's an heiress, and then she started that app. I suppose they'll have to start their own server, their own Safari or Chrome or something.
If they keep closing them down, they'll just make up their own.
They'll make up their own.
You can be sure that the far right wackos will find some way to communicate with one another.
For sure. What else did I watch here? Oh, you know what? I'd never seen Bombshell.
I don't know
watched
anything
that
about
last week. Oh my God, it's so good. It's about Megyn Kelly and Fox News.
Right. Okay.
I would have thought you'd seen that.
I haven't seen it. Sheila's seen it.
Okay, yeah, it's really good. I watched another reality show called The it was a documentary. I watched a lot of documentaries this week called The Minimalists. It was okay, but it was about giving away everything, and they were so proud of having these empty houses. And I was like, well, I like to be minimal too, but I also like to be...
I like clutter. Let me just say it. I like clutter. You may have noticed that when you were staying here.
I like a
piles of crap everywhere. I think actually you did mention that you do have a lot of stuff on your computer desk.
Well, because I was trying to find a place to put my coffee.
Yes.
So that's why I have a lot of stuff
on our computer desk right now.
Yeah.
All right. There's an accordion. There's a fiddle. There's a camera. There's a pile of books.
Yeah.
There's a printer.
Yeah.
There's a computer. There's another pile of books and magazines and important papers. Yeah. There's a box of pens. There are 4 sets of placards.
Right. Your desk is also huge.
It is long desk.
It's like 10 feet long. It's like 10 feet long.
It is, but it's pretty filled with crap.
It's not crap. It's stuff you need. My printer is not on my desk. It's at the front door. So I have it on a shelf that I've created on 2 small filing cabinets. So, you don't have to have your printer next to your computer. I have an old-fashioned desk, probably the 60s or 50s. It's trying to be like Louis XIV or something, but it's not, and it's from Grandma. It's just a very comfortable desk, and the computer's on that, some pens, a lamp, a cup that we got from helping someone move, and it says Phyllis, and we don't know who Phyllis is, but we put change in there for going to the subway. And then I've got a little spot for my Barack Obama coffee mug here and the computer. But I invariably fill it with mail and fill it with books and notes and papers. We have 3 folding TV tables around me right now that we use while we're watching TV or whatever we're doing. And I'm mostly unpacked from our trip, but not entirely. So there's a couple of things in the front room that I haven't.
Should we share the top secret cocktail we invented while you were in
Oh my God, we should. Yes.
Yes.
Comfort
I
don't
know if this fits into Comfort Food Diner, the Comfort Food Bar, I guess, whatever. So you named it. It's called the 103.
That's right, the 103.
And it happened sort of by accident. Somebody had given us a bottle of Wayne Gretzky whiskey.
Yeah.
Which is made, I think, at the Wayne Gretzky Winery in Niagara-on-the-Lake, Ontario.
Oh, does he still have a restaurant downtown?
I think it's gone now.
Okay.
I think. I'm not sure. Because,
right.
I've never been to it. So Wayne Gretzky, of course, was number 99.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I was inspired one evening to
while we're reviewing.
The Wayne Gretzky whiskey is okay, but it's not like it's high character whiskey.
Right, and you were probably drinking heavily during one of our terrible instances of watching Selling Sunset or something.
Heavily.
I know.
I was not drinking heavily, but I did have a double 103. So
right. Which makes it a 206.
The 103 has to have some fruit juice that comes in a box.
Oh, yeah. Yummy.
Box fruit juice. Ours was, I believe it was President's Choice grape juice in a box on sale for $1.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to have 4 ice cubes.
That's right.
Because 99 plus 4
makes 103.
Makes 103.
Makes it 103.
So you get your glass and you put in 4 ice cubes. And then you half cover the ice cubes with your boxed grape juice.
Right.
And then you fill up the glass with Wayne Gretzky whiskey. Then to finish it off properly, you have to stir it with your index finger.
That's right. Perfect.
And that's a 103. Try it. You'll love it. But I have to tell you, 103 is ancient Canadian history because I finished the last 103 the other night.
Okay.
And so today, while I was out, I bought a bottle of mediocre scotch and a bottle of Drambuie. And we're going to go rusty nails around here.
Very nice. I love it. Oh, that'll be a lot of fun. That'll be delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always like rusty nails.
Yeah. You know, we watched, I guess I was joking because we watched a few reality TV shows. We watched one that I really liked while we were with you. It was called The Circle. And the premise,
yeah,
the premise was, now I could not figure out whether it was done through the pandemic because no one actually sees each other. So it was kind of a tricky premise.
At some point they eventually do. They visit each other, right?
Right. But then they could have been tested if they were in quarantine for 2 weeks and they didn't get sick, they would have been fine to see each other for the finale, right? So I had a feeling that maybe it was a pandemic show because basically they give everyone an apartment and I think there's 8 people. And they're also they want to be social influencers, social media influencers, or they competing to win $100,000 as being the most influential person in their group. I think that was a premise. And I still think about a couple of the people. There were Shuby, Sammy, Joey, Rebecca, and Chris.
You actually remember their names.
I know because I kind of you know what? We crammed it in. We watched how many episodes there was. I don't know how many episodes there were, but we crammed them in.
I don't think I watched as many as you, but I did watch some of them.
Yeah.
Some, you watch at times when I was playing Go and doing some other things.
Yeah.
I remember a couple of things about it. One is that they sent messages to one another, but they didn't type them on a keyboard. They spoke them. And so they would speak the message and it would be like, I'm sending message and then Candy, I'm sending you a message, hashtag, whatever the hashtag is.
Friends forever,
send. That was
right.
Very weird.
Right. But it made for good TV because you're not watching them type. I think they did that because at least it was some dialogue. So they basically don't know who each other is in these different apartments. And they're like, they fix them up all different. So they're really kind of funky little frat boy, first apartment kind of style. Like they're really cute. And what I like about it,
some people play themselves. They are themselves.
Right.
And some people
are
pretend. They call them catfish, and they're pretending that they're somebody else, like a guy pretending he's a woman or whatever.
Right. Well, catfish is from it's been around for about 10 years because a guy did get involved with a woman online and he made a film about it and he called her a catfish because she wasn't what she said she was. And then MTV or something hired him to make a TV show called Catfish or Catfishing. So it's a slang that has become part of our vocabulary. It's when you're being somebody and you're pretending to be somebody that you're not. So in fact, Rebecca was actually a guy. He chose his girlfriend's name and he played the part of his girlfriend. And he got pretty far in the game and someone did win the $100,000. One thing I guess I liked about it was just so refreshing to watch these crazy young people, and they had so much energy. It just was kind of a breath of fresh air.
Plus, it was much different than most reality shows.
Yes.
Because they were all really nice people.
They were all really nice people.
They all seemed like people they'd be fun to have a beer with.
Definitely. And they were super...
The one guy brought his mom.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was a wrench. Yeah, that's true. Okay, because when someone gets voted out, they do vote people out. They brought in a couple more contestants, and one guy brought his mom. He was just a piece of work. I don't think he was probably a bad person, but he was annoying as hell. So anyway, I thought that was a lot of fun. Anybody who wants to watch a reality show, I would recommend it because it was just kind of cute. And it was just so bizarre, and I think it was produced after the pandemic. Because by the time they did meet, the 5 people met each other. Oh, sometimes when they got voted off, they got to go visit one of the people.
Yes.
So they did see each other. Again, they could have been indoors for a couple of weeks. It was probably safe for them to do that. And then they would go see them and they would find out if they were a catfish or not, if they were really, because there was one woman who was basically, she was gay, but she was pretending to be straight, and maybe she wasn't pretending to be straight. She was just pretending to look very different, like a Barbie doll. And she was a wonderful woman, and she went and met another guy. and they had a really good rapport during these messages. We don't see all of their messages either, but you start to learn that some people get along better with others. Anyway, I thought it was really interesting. I listened to a couple of podcasts on the drive home. I've been following Justin Long for a while. He has a show called Life is Short, and he interviews tons of celebrities. And we listened to a really good interview with Vince Vaughn. Do you know Vince Vaughn? He's in the Wedding Crashers.
Right.
He was in Swingers. Yeah.
Right.
And I guess they've been friends for a really long time. And that was a really good interview.
For a second, when you said Vince Vaughn, what popped into my mind was Jimmy Vaughn, who is the guitar player in the Fabulous Superlatives.
Okay. That would probably be a good interview too.
Oh yeah, he's a great guitar player. Plus he wears great outfits.
Right. So I don't know what else. That's it. That's what I've been up to. I have such a list of things I watched. It's kind of embarrassing. I've also been reading. Did I say that already? Because I've been reading for my paper. Working on I'm just reading. I'm reading a book that I've read before, which I love. And I think it would be interesting to a lot of people because it's about memory and the theater and memory and cognition. It's called Cognition in the Globe, and she's referring to Shakespeare's theater, but she talks about all kinds of theaters that were running at the time. And one thing that's really interesting, did you know that they did 6 plays a week, different plays? It wasn't like one play for a month or anything. The theater troupes were producing a vast amount of new content every week. And wow. The idea is, one of the things she's wrestling with is how did they remember it all? So she's arguing that that distributed cognition kind of argues that our mind is not just in our brain. It's in, and we've talked about this before on the show, it's in the artifacts around us. And if it's in a workplace, there's certain workplace designs that enhance our memory. And that's one thing I would say would be really important about like the switchboard operator in the Vast of Night. That kind of physical knobs and buttons and pushing is very good for memory because when we do something with our body, and you must get that with practicing instruments, it's a muscle memory and it yes. builds up. And she's saying there's a kind of a muscle memory in theater, even down to the doors that you enter and exit would help be your prompt for remembering your lines. The design of the theater, how many bars and beams are there, even hand gestures would help support memorization. So it's a very interesting read, and it has practical application in the real world. I know that when I did some studies for senior living, when people move out of their house, it compromises their memory because they're not around their familiar things. So sometimes people have a setback when they move into a hospital or a lodge or a retirement community because
yes.
they don't have their house around them, that they're actually higher functioning by staying home. The good news is only 15% of people end up moving into a retirement home. Most people stay at home until the end of life. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
That's a good statistic for you. There you go.
Hey, just talking about Shakespeare and theater troupes and the Vast of Night, I think Vast of Night is a Shakespeare reference.
I think you're right.
I think shell forth at vast of night that they may work from the Tempest.
Wow.
And I think also in Hamlet in the dead vast and middle of the night.
Oh, nice. Well, Shakespeare has a lot of repetitive things. It's funny you should say that because, I love that because of, that does tie into my paper because my paper is a little bit about stargazing, memory, and navigation. And certainly space creatures would be excellent at navigating. I would assume that any aliens are the most expert navigators because they found Earth from another galaxy or solar system or something. That is pretty cool. In this thing with the Cognition in the Globe, she argues that some of the plays have lines that are so similar, and it's kind of for fun to throw off the actors, that when you have a prompt at the end of a sentence, you're waiting, as an actor, you're waiting for that person to say their line. And sometimes these plays had several lines that were very, very similar. And look at how you just found 2 plays that had a reference to Vast and Night. I use, what's it called, a concordance. And what's great about the internet now is that there's concordances online. You used to get a book of concordances of Shakespeare where you would look up every word in the book and then you could find out how many times it shows up. But there's online concordances for Shakespeare, so that's very, very handy. I never even realized it was a Shakespeare reference.
For people who are tuned in to those sorts of things, such as yourself, it must be an amazing resource.
Oh my God, it's totally amazing. I mean, I can look up how many times a number shows up in Blood Meridian. I can look up how many times the word a color shows up in Shakespeare, because you're arguing thematic things. Part of the philosophy of writing is you're looking for thematic constancy. So when you can use a concordance, it's very, very helpful. Saves a lot of time. And it's fantastic on the internet. So much better than looking through a book, you know? No, not better than looking through a book. I don't want to insult books. But it's great because you have your computer. You could just go look at there. You don't have to go to the library or anything. So that's very handy. I love it. What else did I watch? Oh, I wanted to say Vast of Night was Andrew Patterson. I just didn't know if we said his name.
We did.
We did. Good, because that's going to be pretty. I can't wait to find out.
The actors were John Horowitz and Sienna McCormack.
That's right. And they both had done some
Sierra
things.
McCormack.
Sierra McCormack. Yeah,
I write something down and I don't know how I expect I'm going to read it again.
Yeah, they both. I'm curious how he managed to get some fairly experienced young actors. I mean, and that they weren't well known. I suppose if she was on Disney, so I suppose if you follow that, you would know it. But they weren't known to me. That's for sure. Yeah, I loved it. What about Ma Rainey?
Well, we watched
that. I really liked it. I did not know it was a stage play, and that kind of threw me for a while, and they did film it like a stage play. But I thought Viola Davis was amazing.
She was very strong in it. I wish that it was a show about her character, that it was about Ma Rainey's character. But in fact, that wasn't what the show was about at all. She was certainly part of it, but it was really much more about this guy and the band.
Guy and the band. I would love to see a spin-off of, I wish somebody would get her to do a whole movie on Ma Rainey because she was so incredible. I really liked it because it was set in a time frame. The part about it being a stage was a little bit at first a surprise because I thought it was going to be like a biopic. But it was August Wilson play recreated in film. And I think they stayed very true to the production of the play. I mean, the sets were beautiful, but it was definitely about the struggle of musicians. And finally, Chadwick Boseman was really, really good. But, that was a surprise to find out that he was in it and that it was really his story, and a very tragic story, and ending with the fact that generations of people, even intergenerational pain, was being acted out between the older musicians and him, and cultural appropriation by record companies. I think people will enjoy it. Viola Davis was incredible. The acting is incredible. I would recommend it. Just be prepared that it is a stage play filmed for TV and not a big movie.
I agree. The performances were quite strong. I struggled with the filming of the stage play aspect of it.
Yeah,
I thought that some of the dialogue seemed kind of stilted.
Well, I think that it was. I think that was his style. I think it was on purpose. But I agree, it was not a realistic.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's well worth watching.
Oh, well worth watching, definitely. And also, I don't know what year that was written. I think I'm going to say the 60s, 50s or 60s, but it's maybe 70s. But it's just shocking that really not much has changed for musicians and the business. It's still going on. And I think that the movie, I think what really was incredible was you're watching this whole movie and that's this playcraft, and then the punchline was that all the white musicians and the white producer were stealing music from people. And really Ma Rainey was a force of nature because she knew that they were going to steal her, and she just fought against them constantly. And Chadwick Boseman didn't have that kind of understanding yet. He was going to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
I do recommend it, though. I thought it was a really incredible production.
I recommend it with reservations.
Yeah. That makes sense. Well, Eugene, what do you think?
Well, I wanted to tell you, I have this idea. It's been bugging me for some time.
Okay.
And I'm going to make a miniature N-scale rail layout.
Oh.
That is going to be not like a typical rail layout in that, with all the fake grass and mountains and like that. It's going to be made out of crap that I find like in the park.
Oh, I love it.
Discarded beer tins and stuff like that.
Like labels and paper and stuff like that. Yeah.
But it occurred to me when I was watching The Vast of Night that it would be really neat to make a UFO and have the UFO land in the layout. And
definitely
have thousands of, like, I don't know, panicked people or something running away. Anyway, I'm thinking of doing a space alien N-scale layout.
I love it.
I'll let you know how that goes.
That is so cool. You just blew my mind.
Well, it's something I've wanted to do for many, many years.
Do you have space for that?
Well, N-scale is very small, so you can do it on a 4x2 piece of board.
Also, you know what you could do, Eugene? You could build it in patches. You could assemble it, you could store it all stacked up or something, or next to each other, and then put it together on a big table.
Well, yes, except that doing it in miniature, it doesn't need the big table.
Oh.
What I like about the N-scale is that it's self-contained.
Okay.
And it's very small.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So, yeah, I mean, the trains are only a few inches long. So,
I love it.
Anyway, I wanted to do this for some time. I think I'm going to do it. I've started to make more concrete plans. And as I said, when I watched Vast of Night, it occurred to me that I really need to have an alien landing.
Yes. Well, that's good, because I think that movie was extremely generative. It was very inspiring. And it starts out, it doesn't make any sense that it's such a good movie because it starts out so odd. And if you just persevere, to our listeners, just persevere. It's worth it. It's really worth it. And I think the actors were really special and magical, and I just loved it.
Well, it's funny, I did a series of recent paintings called UFO as well.
Right.
The UFO paintings. And, there are no rules as to what a UFO has to look like.
Totally. You're right. Absolutely.
So,
that is
anyway.
So true. Oh, I'm pretty excited for you. That sounds like
a
lot of fun.
It'll be a fun project.
Now I wish we were there so I could see this happening.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to start it soon, and I will provide updates as we go.
Good. I've made 2 frittatas since I saw you, and they came out really good.
Excellent.
The first one was a little short, so the next one I made with like 10 eggs or something and just had leftovers.
Yeah, I think that's what you have to do.
I think so. And you know what? With the labor of doing it, you're chopping up vegetables. Why not have leftovers?
Exactly.
And it tastes great the next day.
They're really yummy, even cold.
Yeah. And what else? Oh, I made leek and potato soup, which I haven't eaten yet. We're going to have that today. Basically a condensed, I had vegetable broth from Trader Joe's. And it's $1.99. It's very handy. And, just sauteed up some leeks with some potatoes, brought it to boil, let it simmer for about 20 minutes. And then today we're going to add some half and half or cream into it when we heat it up. So I'm so excited. A little bit of sage. I was looking for time. I didn't have time. I used it up the day before. And I also got ginger to make, and chicken thighs to make your recipe you shared with us a year ago.
Excellent.
Yeah. So I'm pretty excited about that. Now, listen, can I ask you a question? Do I need to saute the chicken first with it? I'm going to grate up the ginger and the garlic and the fish oil.
And you're going to marinate it for...
Okay.
You're marinated for as long as you can, like overnight is good.
See, I already forgot that detail, so I better go do that today.
You marinate it with basically fish sauce and some garlic and ginger.
Okay, good.
And then you brown it in the pan.
Okay.
and then you use the rest of the marinade plus a little bit of water to braise the chicken.
All right, thank you. I'm going to do that tonight. I'll get that going. And I thought I might make some focaccia.
Nice.
Yeah.
I want to come to your place for dinner.
I know. Well, you know what? That's what happens when you end up being inside. You can't do anything. You start cooking again. Cooking and watching endless amounts of television and movies and reading. It's wonderful.
Fortunately, we have a podcast so we can talk about these things.
I know, right? I know. Well, I want to thank everybody for listening. We really appreciate you.
If you want to reach us, you can email us at theagency.podcast@gmail.com.
And we have a newly revised address.
Is this because we were giving the wrong address before, or is it changed?
It's changed, and I kind of had two mailboxes, and I didn't realize it. It's sort of a communication problem between the post office and myself. So it's very close. It hasn't changed that much. We've been getting our mail, not a problem. But I did talk to the post office, and we seems to have fixed it up. So it's The Agency, care of Anthony Stagg, at Post Office Box 8912801, 1859 South Ashland Avenue, Chicago, Illinois 60608. And we got some mail art while we were in Canada. It was a real thrill to come home and get that. So thank you so much.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And we'll be back at you next week with more of The Agency.
Sounds good. Bye.
Bye.